Come into the Paul Kuharsky podcast live from Ford Field in Detroit, sponsored by Edley's Barbecue, the best place to eat barbecue in and all around Nashville. Find your best location at edleysbbq.com. Link right there if you're watching this on YouTube or Twitter. Find it, crave it, head there tomorrow, pig out. It's the best place to eat around. I get into it in a big way where I crave it. And I've got to go have the barbecue avocado or the burnt ends. Can't resist it. Appreciate Edley's for their part in this whole deal. And Brymac, commercial heating and cooling, which sends me on the road all the time. This is a different kind of game to recover from. Obviously, Titans were entertaining for a while. And then they turned the ball over and they gave up 1 billion yards in kick and punt returns. And Detroit was operating from inside the Titans' 20-yard line all day long. They scored, I think, 5 touchdowns from close range down there. And you're playing one of the better teams in the league. And you don't make them work at all, which is pretty ridiculous method. Retweet out there if you're out there. Point your friends towards the broadcast on YouTube, and if you're listening later on Sunday or Monday morning, like, rate, subscribe, review on Apple, on Spotify, and on iHeart, where we broadcast as well. You should be a member of paulkuharsky.com, where I've got a column up saying the Titans need a jolt, and it just may be Colt Andersons' ouster. He certainly, the way his units are performing on special teams suggests he's in over his head. I know a lot of you are going to say the same about Callahan. Look, Callahan's not going anywhere anytime soon. But the special teams, the fact that they had punts blocked in their first 2 games, that they've not produced really anything, maybe 2 returns of reasonable length, and then they come here and they give up well over 200 yards in returns to Khalif Raymond, 190 punt return yards to Khalif Raymond, including a 90-yard return, a guy that they cast off in 2021 under a different regime. It was crazy. I asked Brian Callahan about Colt, appearing at this point to be a friend that he hired too soon for the job. He didn't want to get into it, obviously, but I think it's a fair question at this point. And look, whether it's the right thing to do or not, they need something to jolt this team back to life. I mean, he just ran through, Callahan, a laundry list of things that haven't fallen into place for this team. There's got to be something that goes right. JT Runke here to produce, and I'd ask him to go ahead and hit Robert Draper's question on the voicemail line, which members are always welcome to use. If we could hit Robert's thing, that's a good taking off point.
Paul, hi, it's Robert Draper, and I'm just curious, from your experience, how important is it to an organization that is on the kind of losing skid that the Titans are to send a signal by hiring someone like Colt Anderson, by formally saying, in essence, that NPF is not going to be playing anymore, maybe cutting him from the team. But in other words, basically to send a signal not just that we're not happy with the things, with the way that things are going, that this just simply can't be tolerated, and that we have to hold ourselves accountable to a higher standard in a way that isn't just done with, sort of kumbaya talk, but basically that means heads will roll, frankly. Okay, thanks very much, bye.
You can't do it just to do it. You can't cut NPF because you don't have anybody better behind NPF. Now, maybe Isaiah Prince, who they signed, who hadn't been in the league in over a year, he's on the practice squad now. So if you come out of it feeling like Leroy Watson and John Ojukwu, who you had cut and put on the practice squad and are only calling up now because Duncan's on IR, if Price comes up and then you feel like those 3 guys are your best 3 guys, but, then somebody else gets hurt, you're going to need NPF. So, I think you can simultaneously send a message that you're not satisfied with NPF's play, which you did today by deactivating him without cutting him and putting yourself in a bind. I think the guy would probably get picked up somewhere because people don't have third offensive tackles throughout the league. With Colt Anderson, I mean, the backup there is Anthony Levine, who has less experience than Colt Anderson, but was a very good special teams player. I think is regarded as an innovative, young, promising guy. He was a Vrabel hire, and they had 3 special team coaches last year. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know if firing Anderson is the right thing. And I don't really believe in symbolic firings. We don't know what the holding guys to account is behind the scenes. And people could be getting their asses chewed out in front of the team. You know, Anderson could be getting his ass chewed out in front of the coaching staff. We don't know about that stuff. And I think there's probably more of that goes on than we think. And also, I think there's more shame in sitting in a Monday meeting and seeing your performance dissected, seeing your unit's performance dissected than we think. I think it's a very outright, unabashed review of your performance in front of your colleagues and your peers. And there's a lot of shame in that, to walk around carrying that. Now, I know that's not enough for a lot of people who want, you know, these consequences. I'm not saying you're that guy, Robert. I know you know, pretty well in terms of your membership and our dialogue. But people want the heads to roll kind of thing. And I do think once in a while, it sends a message. But how much better were Titans special teams after Ackerman was gone? Well, they weren't getting punts blocked. That killed Zentner after Stonehouse got, you know, his leg smashed up. I think symbolically you can say, hey, we're not standing for a unit performing this way, and there are going to be big consequences for it. I've rarely called for it. I stopped short of calling for it here, but I certainly think it needs to be considered. James Pirtle's asking here, could it be a depth issue? I think it is partly a depth issue. And in that regard, it falls on Rand. Not that the depth needs to be better, but they did things like choosing Chestnut over Haskins. Well, Chestnut's a better running back, but Haskins is a better special teams player. So at that point, you're saying, well, we can make do. Well, are they making do? They're not making do. What else do we have here? Don't kiss the ring. I don't know what that means from the distinguished gentleman. Or Don kiss the ring? I don't know. TK. But remember, PK, Big Jeff made sure to let you and everyone else know. Nobody runs on us. Yeah, Big Jeff on the touchdown run got pushed back about 10 yards by Penei Sewell, who's one of the best interior offensive linemen. Now, if you're one of the best defensive interior linemen, that should be a wash. Now, that's one snap. But on the other big run, the really big run outside left, everybody got washed there. Jeff got washed there. Jeff's usually a big chaser. I have no beef generally with Jeff's effort. Jeff runs his ass off to the ball. He gave up on that one. He knew there was no hope of catching the guy, but usually he'll run for a while anyway. He didn't run for a while anyway on that one. I didn't get a chance to talk to Jeff today because I was swinging at special teamers, and I talked to Mike Brown and I talked to Morgan Cox. And so you'll see those guys in my column. William Mann said, really not sure how Colt Anderson survives it. The problems go beyond special teams, but they're unbelievably awful and well below basic NFL standards. I would agree. Amy Adams Strunk was here. Steve Lehman, I don't know if he knew that Sheila Camp was the person that Amy Adams Strunk was talking to, but she's close to Sheila Ford Camp, Amy, would like to model the Titans, this collaborative front office and coaching staff that she's got organized now is modeled somewhat after Detroit. And that she got to see her team be 38 points worse than her friend's model. Had to be embarrassing for her. Now, I think she wants to be calm and steady. And Dan Campbell had a very bad first year in that model. So maybe she's going to take that example. But had to hurt to leave here looking like that. Had to hurt here leaving looking like that. Scrolling through your questions, I'll try to get everybody. Randall Jones finding a bright side here. At least Calvin Ridley figured some things out. Did have, 9 for, or 10. 10. I don't know why I left this stuff back here. He had 15 targets, 10 catches, and 140 something? A very nice day for Calvin Ridley. And the impact early that he wants, 143 yards. Didn't get in the end zone, but looked like a guy that you would give the contract to that he got. Question here, does firing anybody do any good for this team right now? I just kind of finished answering that. I don't know if you came in late, but I don't know. Does not firing anybody do any good for anybody right now? Yeah, maybe Stonehouse is out kicking his coverage some there. I mean, a lot of teams don't have an identity at the beginning of a new regime that don't start on fire, and it takes a while. The issue I have there is the people they have. Who are the people that are trying to establish an identity? And I think that is a personnel problem. And it's hard for me to comprehend that this team still has a personnel problem to that degree. And Callahan certainly made suggestions and got people that he approved of. But that's Rand's job, the personnel end of it. Here's a long question. Let's see if it's worth it. From Alex, the Titans have regressed after spending all the money they did in free agency. I'd seriously question the judgment of both Rand and Callahan. Needless to say, something needs to change, and there needs to be repercussions for the performances. Ultimately, this all likes with AAS. She decided to blow it up and fire Vrabel, the best coach this franchise has had in Tennessee. It all starts with Amy Adams Strunk. I mean, there's nothing you could do now post Vrabel except go forward with what you've got to have. William Mann didn't love the got to coach, we got to play better, got to coach better. Obviously Callahan doesn't know the history of that, but there was more meat on it, I think, than Vrabel, who used to say it kind of independent of anything else. I've said this for a while now, EA, who asks, where is Jeff Simmons? That's a lot of money for no production. He's not a Chris Jones or an Aaron Donald. He did near this goal line, bust through and drop a running back for a 3-yard loss kind of play you'd like to see Jeff Simmons make. But I think he's just not the player he used to be. Here, Stephen Jordan says the 2 tight ends that are never active are taking roster spots for special teams players. Well, that's true and it's not true. Somebody has to be deactivated. So if you're taking those 2 tight ends off the roster and you're putting 2 more guys on the roster, who are you taking off the 48 to get those 2 guys on? Well, here's the thing. A simple circuit says it seems like they felt better about special teams depth than they should have. I mean, it's not special teams depth. It's depth on your team. So the bottom of your roster, so you're playing 48 guys on game day, right? Bad teams don't have good players from 38 to 48, say. And those players have to be good at special teams and good backups at their positions. So, guys I noticed, Mike Brown, who did I write down? Mike Brown, Otis Reese, and Trey Avery. Well, are Mike Brown, Otis Reese, and Trey Avery on most teams on their 48? Are they the 3rd safety, and the 4th cornerback, and the 3rd or 4th inside linebacker? No. But they're on this team at those spots, and thus they play special teams. Tony wants people to wear bags over their heads. Here's something interesting. The Jets punt returner today had a 64-yard, not the Jets, the Patriots punt returner had a 64-yard punt return today to set up a touchdown against the Jets, who the Patriots beat. So Titans are facing a punt returner who got a feel for things today. You think they're excited to be facing the Titans punt defense unit? Titan Kong says he feels like Will Levis needs to play at some point. You're 1-6, you have nothing to lose. You want to see Levis. Levis isn't playing because he's hurt, not because they don't want to play him. That's their plan, is to play Will Levis as much as they can. That's not even the worst special teams performance this year in terms of coverage. Seattle gave up 266 yards in week 6 to San Francisco. Not even the worst yardage game this year. Better yet, in history. Rand declined my request to be for an interview this week. I was told to see about after the trade deadline. I haven't seen enough. Michael's asking, who do I like, Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward? I don't like the circus that's going to come with Shedeur Sanders. I don't think it's healthy for this organization. I think they might not want to come here because it's not big enough for them. They, being he and his dad, who's going to be a big part of this whole thing. I haven't seen Cam Ward play. All right, let's get to this. Gary wants to talk about the goal line stand, and we have a phone call about the goal line stand. So let's hear from Jim, who wants to talk about the goal line stand, as the goal line offense as well.
Hey, PK, this is Jim Belaski, a.k.a. Texan. Overall, I'm still with the team. I think, saw a few signs today. But one thing I have a hard time with is the sort of hard-headedness of going to the pass on that goal line stand. I'm not saying it's a trend or anything, or this is an overall indictment, but boy, it sure reminded me of the Terry Robinsky days. Anyway, thanks, PK, for all you do. I appreciate you. Cheers.
Thanks, Jim. I think Terry Robinsky would have run it every time. So they had a play from the 7. They got pass interference that set them at the goal line. They threw 4 times, twice to Boyd. Boyd was short of the wouldn't have gotten in on one of those plays, short of the goal line. I don't understand that. Boyd's, I don't know. I'm down on Boyd. I don't like Boyd as an option, especially if he needs to turn and get a yard, which he's not going to do there. Clearly, you have at least one time out there with the 30 seconds left range. I don't know why you don't try Pollard there once. Everything's fine if they get in on one of the passes. They don't get in on one of the passes. It's a bad series of play calls. None of them looked particularly good. Mason said, he threw one too hard. He threw one too soft. It's not a good look. You scored there. You get it to 35-21. You're 2 touchdowns down, and you get the ball on a kickoff coming out in the 3rd quarter. So you're not in terrible shape. Now, here's another thing we need to point out. Titans gave up a slew of return yards. The Titans standard, when you talk to them about what they want and punt and kick, they start with don't fumble. Don't fumble. I mean, you think that maybe Detroit raises that point, but you think it doesn't go without saying that the Lions returners are not going to fumble and that they aspire to much more than not fumbling? Ackerman said that all the time. Anderson says that all the time. But first, we want to not fumble. Yeah, duh. You don't aspire to more than that? So while they're talking about that, Jaquan Jackson has done nothing. So they continue to not have a returner on their team that threatens anything nearly as dynamic as what we saw on that field from the incredibly dynamic Detroit guys who were finding lanes left and right. Howie asks, is Brian Callahan a bad coach? Is Denard? If so, how does this illegitimize the evaluation of Levis? There's no illegitimization of Levis. certainly Denard has no bearing whatsoever on the evaluation of Levis. This regime is getting its evaluation of Levis. Callahan is going to be here at least another year, I think. Even if he's not, Levis is putting professional football snaps on tape and not doing well with them. Yeah, TK raises a good point. Everyone, please remember when fans thought Rudolph was going to save this franchise this year. The Titans have lousy personnel judgment, says Martin Brady. They cut or do not sign guys who find success with other teams. Khalif Raymond, 2021. It used to be early in the Vrabel tenure, and even before that they cut guys and they didn't wind up anywhere doing anything. Kick the ball out of bounds, Robert says. That's pretty funny, actually. Yeah, CA, let's not pretend he says for weeks he's been writing in there about Colt. Titans always take too long to own their mistakes. We moved on from Malarkey and Vrabel partially because of loyalty to staff. A lot of people have been complaining about Colt. He's not, his units have not been good. But again, the personnel he's working with is not very good. Now, you need to be a good coach in order to work well with personnel that maybe isn't as good as the personnel you're working against. Is he up to that? So far, he's not been up to that. I can understand patience with the head coach and the head coach wanting to be patient with his guys. This is where I think ownership steps in. She's embarrassed in front of her friend, mentor, and you went through a punt blocking phase. Now you go through a disastrous return return yards against, and I think it's sad and terrible. Speaking of sad and terrible, how about my Yanks? Man, two pretty well played games that just tomorrow night's a huge game. Don't contact me tomorrow night. Well, look, Patriots look like a better team than us this days. The Patriots have lost 6 in a row. And they're 2-6 or 2-7. I'm sure the Patriots are going to come to Nashville thinking they're in line for a win. I'm sure the Titans are going to feel like, hey, we finally got somebody in a home game that's eminently beatable. So I should, what's the locker room sound like? Downtrodden, beaten down. What should it sound like? Oh, I'll take some praise. Beast Boy wants to say thanks for all my work and asking the questions that we need answered. Just doing my job. Thank you. A follow-up Beast Boy complimenting me by Beast Boy saying trading Malik was the wrong move. He was the future. Malik, I don't know what Malik did today. I know he played in relief. Everything Malik showed here suggested that he was not good and not the future, and that he's playing well in a backup role in a perfect situation does not mean that he would have been good here. Kurt says, do I expect a formal statement from the front office on the current performance? Have I or other sports media requested a statement? If so, how accommodating are the Titans on the request? Nobody gives a statement. Request an interview. I requested to talk to Rand this week, and I was denied. I never want a statement. I want a conversation. Jack Shepard says, I'm the best thing about the Titans, for real, for real. That's why those of you who are not members of my site, I'm kind of hurt and insulted. Here you are, there's 1,700 of you in the room, just on, well, I guess that's combined Twitter and YouTube. But come join. $7.50 a month. You spend that on a cocktail. Trust me, the content's worth it. Everything I write, Blake Bedingfield, scouting reviews and previews, Mike Herndon with big film analysis last week, all kinds of breakdowns of Calvin Ridley in situations, what's going wrong, where was the potential for things to go right, et cetera, et cetera. I'm trying to get to the bottom of what's going wrong, show you a little bit of things of promise, observing things that, with the unique set of eyes that's been around since they were the Houston Oilers in 1996. Come, sign up, check it out. It's worth your while. Trust me. Fire the entire lot. I mean, what's it? 7 games. I don't know. Do you fire everything after 7 games of a coach? It seems fast. Patience usually prevails. There are 8 coaches that started. I wrote this week, 8 coaches who started with a 4 wins or fewer season, who finished with career records over 500. I can't remember what the permutation was. 6 of them are Hall of Fame coaches. Really, really good coaches who won less than 4 games or less in their first year. You want to leave for the possibility that something like that can happen? There's just no patience for anything. Not going to let the guy grow into it a little bit. I mean, to be fair, look, yeah, it sucks that Khalif Raymond is this good. But when Khalif Raymond left in 2021, nobody was clamoring to keep Khalif Raymond. I wasn't. I said, go get people who are better than Khalif Raymond. Now they haven't done that. Well, one thing Brandon says, what makes this team any different than the Urban Meyer Jags? I mean, Urban Meyer's Jags were grumbling that there's no way that he was up for the task, and nobody's grumbling that here from inside the locker room. Why not, Mark asks, why not let all the rookies play meaningful snaps to get them experience? Spencer, Jackson, Williams, Gray, when healthy. Well, Spencer is probably going to contribute to getting the quarterback hurt. That's why. Other guys, if they're not ready, they're not ready. I mean, if Williams is going to go out there and he doesn't know what he's doing, that's a problem. Yeah, Brandon says, I think it's clear this is a tank job for the first pick. Callahan and Rand need some time to change things. They're not intentionally losing. They're not. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I hate the tank thing so much, to think that a team like, what did the Titans do today intentionally? You think players intentionally, players who are trying to stay employed in the NFL, intentionally let kick returners and punt returners run by them in the name of the organization getting the first pick? Do we honestly think that happens? Do we honestly think Jeffrey Simmons let himself get embarrassed by Penei Sewell and pushed back 10 yards so that David Montgomery could score an easy touchdown so that the Titans could get the first pick, because Jeffrey Simmons gives a shit about the first pick as opposed to his personal pride and all of us who are saying that he's not the same guy? We think Jeffrey Simmons is in on that? I mean, when you listen to me say those things, don't you now feel like you're wearing a tinfoil hat? Because you are. Would Belichick be a better choice than who? I mean, Belichick's a good coach who's egomaniacal and needs absolute control. And Amy is not looking for a coach who wants absolute control. Mike Vrabel was not looking for absolute control. He asked at one point for more control. That does not mean he demanded it or made it like he was going to try to get out of his contract if he didn't get it. People have a hard time with that. Like, I can ask for a promotion when I was at ESPN and not get it, and then proceed with my life as my life was. That's the real world. But Belichick wants a level of control that the Titans aren't going to get. He also wants a level of ownership that he's not going to get here. And so it probably would not be a match. And Belichick's number one goal is get 15 wins, period. He wants to get those 15 wins, and then who knows what he's going to do after that. So it's kind of the same thing, Robert. Amy telling Callahan to fire him or firing him herself. I'm sure, I'm virtually certain that she was behind Vrabel having to fire Ackerman And I think if you go to Vrabel or Callahan and say, we've got to get rid of the special teams coach, that a coach is going to want to do it himself rather than have the owner do it. And I'm pretty sure she wouldn't do it. She would say, you do it. Winston looked good today. I mean, people are getting all excited about Winston. He won that game today. Let's see what he does in the end. And I don't know if you're suggesting, like, because Winston won a game in Cleveland in relief of a disastrous guy in front of him, Deshaun Watson, that means what? That Winston should be here? I don't know. Kevin Stefanski's a really good coach. Again, just 3 or 4 years ago, UV is saying, who knew all those 9-7 Fisher years were the good old days? 2021, this team was the best team in the AFC. Now, they blew it in the playoffs, but they were the number 1 seed in the AFC. So this statement is silly to say those 9-7 Fisher years were the good old days. 3 years ago was the good old days. Number 1 seed in the AFC, but we just skip by that because it's inconvenient, because you want to be longer suffering than you are. Like, it's been 3 bad years. 3 bad years. The year before that was a fantastic year, but everybody wants to pretend like that didn't exist. You want to be longer suffering than you are. You want to feel more sorry for yourself than you deserve to feel for yourself. I really don't get it. This is also false. Stephen Jordan says, in your opinion, Amy and Rand are on the page of building a team ready to win big when the new stadium opens in 27. You can't time up when you're good. Teams get good, ahead of schedule, behind schedule. If you have a top 3 pick, do you trade it for more picks, then use those picks to get Manning in 2026? It would be great to get Manning, but you can't count on getting Manning. You don't know what's going to happen, who's going to have the number 1 pick in 26, how much they want Manning, what else they have. You can't plan like that. There's 31 other teams you got to worry about. And people are making far too much of planning for 27 when you've got 25 and 26 in front of you. I mean, are there long-range plans for 3 years out? Sure. Everybody's got long-range plans for 3 years out. But your short-term plans before that come first. I mean, Callahan is certainly, I think, going to get a chance to be involved in the picking of a quarterback and to do his thing with his guy. And that's kind of the problem with how things go. First off, the Titans have frequently needed a quarterback in a bad quarterback drafting year when they've had a good pick. Vince year turned out not to be a good year, even though people thought it was. Locker year was a bad year. Last year was a bad year, and they didn't have a high enough pick. The Levis year, excuse me. So you want to be in position to pick a quarterback in a good quarterback draft. This doesn't seem like it's going to be that. But yeah, you want him to be happy with somebody. But you'd like it to line up where the coach and the GM are hired together and get their quarterback all at the same time. Now, Amy, through her firing of people, never has the coach and the GM come together. Even though Robinson hiring Vrabel, it kind of felt like they were together. But they were only on the same clock on second contract. You need the 2 guys on the same clock, starting at the same time, working entirely together. Ideally with the quarterback that they both are involved in bringing in. Edley's Barbecue, the best barbecue in Nashville. You need to go eat there. 6:30 in Nashville. You could still make it tonight. Watch a little of the late game. But if not tonight, lunch tomorrow, dinner tomorrow, plan out your week. You've got to have some really good barbecue. There are 8 local locations, I believe. I go to the one up in Berry Farms in Franklin. I broadcast on Thursdays from the one in 5 Points in East Nashville. You can come say hello to me there between 1 and 2 on Thursdays. I get there like 12:30 to set up. It'd be cool if you came by and said hello. Tell them I sent you. All over. Sylvan Park is a great one. 12 South is a great one. There's a new one in Gallatin. Edley's Food. I mean, if you haven't been there, you have no idea what you're missing. And if you have been there, I know you comment in the comments here. I get emails from you. You tweet me. Place is just phenomenal. Don't take my word for it. If you don't know it, go try it. You'll become a total convert to the best barbecue in town. You see their logo up there. You see their web address down here if you're watching. If you're listening, Edley's, EDLEYS Go to the website, find an address, punch it into your phone, get moving. Robert says, can I explain why GMs aren't required to talk to media during the season when they have as much to do with the performance of a team than the coach at least once a month? It's just not the way things are set up. Well, most GMs at least have some sort of conversational relationship with people that cover them. I don't have a conversational relationship with Rand, unfortunately. I think he doesn't have a conversational relationship with most of the people that cover the team. And I'll reserve further stuff on that until he doesn't conversate with me after the trade deadline. But everything everyone makes is subscribe to our real total for the month is blah, blah, blah. Never mind, TJ. TJ says this franchise has too much loyalty to just a guy players. I feel they're being overly loyal to Simmons if they won't listen to trade offers. They don't have any stars, really, and that's a big part of the problem here. You need big stars to have a good football team. Big, not because of the marketability, because big stars are what make the league go. But I don't think they're super loyal to non-stars. They're super loyal to Tyler Boyd, say, because Tyler Boyd knows the offense and he can help other people learn the offense. But if they had access to somebody better and younger and more affordable to Tyler Boyd, they'd replace him. They don't have access to that guy. They brought in 16 of their top 24 guys. I looked at, I count 24 because you've got 11 on offense in 3 wide, but then you want to look at 2 tight. So that's really 12 guys. And you look on defense and you go, nickel, they're in most of the time, but sometimes they're in base. So that's not 11 guys, but 12 guys. So there's 24 guys. Well, of their 24 guys, they had 16 new guys. They changed over a shit ton. And a lot of it looked pretty good, the veteran guys. Now, Ridley, this is the first game that he was good, consistently, top to bottom. Sneeds missed 2 games with a damn thigh bruise from taking a helmet, and he wasn't very good before that. Cushionberry's nowhere near as good as we thought he'd be. Ernest Jones was pretty good, and they turned him around and came out ahead on that. And we'll see what Baker's like once they get him caught up. He'll play ahead of Gibbons, who's not a very good player on defense. The other guys, I think Diggs is an okay safety, not spectacular by any means. Owuzie, we've hardly seen, but Brownlee's emerged as a nice draft pick. Sweat, good run stopper, doesn't do much to push the pocket to get to the passer. Latham growing steadily, taking time, but it's on the upswing. Who am I missing? All those free agent guys. Pollard is the best one by far, and they keep getting themselves in position where they can't really run in the second half because they're playing catch up and chase. So would owners want coaches to tank? I think it's unseemly. I mean, if there's Trevor Lawrence, as Trevor Lawrence was expected to be, or Peyton Manning, then you'd be in the conversation about it, about potentially tanking. There's nobody like that in this draft. So I really don't think it's that big a deal. And you can miss at 3 and hit at 6 very easily. It happens all the time. So I just think at this stage of the season, what this organization needs is play a little bit of winning football. I mean, if you think it's not important for Latham and Sweat and Brownlee and Skoronski and Spears to be a part of some wins, I think you're off there. We got one more phone call on the voicemail line. Members are invited to call in anytime during the week, leave something for the Sunday night podcast, generally going to be about the game. Thursday podcast, cover whatever you want to get into. Let's hear from Alex about Callahan's job security.
Hey, Paul. Alex from New York here. So obviously that was one of the worst losses, we've seen as Titans fans in several years. The 59-0 New England game sticks out, but it's, right up there. My question for you is, does this, if it continues in this direction, in any way make Callahan's job at risk? And if so, what direction does the franchise go? As a fan, I'd love to see a return to a guy like Vrabel that's, touted as a leader of men. But it's just so frustrating the direction things have gone this year. Thanks, Paul.
You can't fire Vrabel and return to a guy like Vrabel a year later. Just doesn't make sense. I mean, they wanted to go away from Vrabel, who is a little bit strong-willed, to somebody that's more collaborative. If she gives up on the collaborative idea that quickly, she doesn't have much backbone, it would seem to me. I think the person that should be most at risk is Rand for the free agent class disaster. I think Rand's counter to that is that I've drafted reasonably well. He's going to say, he kind of planted it. This was really my first draft class, because Vrabel's fingerprints are on the last draft class, but he's the guy around who had a hand in drafting Will Levis, which obviously was not a good draft pick. I don't think Callahan is not a leader of men. He's not the same type of leader of men that Vrabel is. I know which personality I might choose for the locker room, but I'd choose a different personality for the public face of my franchise. So you'd like to find, have somebody that's both. And I don't know that Callahan has yet proven he's not a leader of men. I don't know that he has the right men to lead. What's the problem with both of those? Well, Vrabel the last 2 years didn't have good personnel. And a lot of that was left over from Robinson. And the Robinson effect, somebody here saying you can only blame Robinson for so long. Echoes of Robinson's bad decisions last. The Isaiah Wilson hole, the Treylon Burks hole, the Caleb Farley hole. Those are all still omnipresent on this team. You only have so many draft picks. Then if you really want to try to fill it, you go and do what they did in free agency. It hasn't worked so far. Robinson's issues still hurt. Now, missing on that quarterback last year, and we haven't seen it from Levis so far, also still hurts. But I'm not going to put anything past Amy Adams-Strunk because she's made some moves that we haven't expected and been rash in the past. I don't know if moving on from Carthon would be rash. I think the most likely thing is nothing. Second most likely thing is Rand would be out and Brinker would be elevated. And then they'd just promote, behind Brinker. I think the third most likely thing would be the front office is gone and Callahan stays and has a say in a new general manager. And boy, how big would that go over? Callahan's going to win 1, 2, 3 games and come out of it with more. It doesn't feel right. How do you outgain a team 2-1 and still lose? By giving the other team the ball where it didn't need to gain any yards. I don't think the Lions were going to have trouble gaining yards if you gave them a long field. They did have 170-yard touchdown drive. They didn't need to gain yards because they were put in such close proximity to their own goal line. It wasn't really a problem. Rand brought in the players and had a boatload of salary cap. For what? Yeah, for better than this. We've had a long discussion here, Luke, about the special teams coach and what his future is. And if it's a symbolic firing, if it's a system firing, doesn't have many players to work with, but also hasn't seemed very self-aware when we've talked to him. We talk to him weekly. And he doesn't seem super aware. Would Rand trade both Landry and Key if the price was right? I don't know. I mean, Harold's certainly worth a lot more. I think Harold could get you a third or a second, and I'm very bad at estimating trade prices for things like this. Key is not going to bring you much back, though he had a nice day today, so got to give him credit. I was impressed that he had the turnaround that he did today. That was a good job by him. But he didn't have much value. There are some, I talked to one personnel guy who said, there's a brand of personnel guy that values a guy like Key. But look, here's the thing. You traded Hopkins and you have somebody behind him who can do some things. NWI caught a touchdown today. NWI can be productive. And you traded Ernest Jones and you got Jerome Baker back. He wasn't on the field today, but he will be on the field. So you got somebody Frank Bush sounds like he likes Baker better than he liked Ernest Jones. Either way, you got a body back who can play the position. If you trade Harold Landry, you're not going to wind up, and you don't have anybody on the roster that can, fill Harold Landry, even an unproductive Harold Landry's spot with any effect. If you trade Jeffrey Simmons, you don't have anybody that could fill his spot with any effect. Now, that said, Jeffrey Simmons missed a game earlier this year. They didn't really miss him. They put a committee in his spot and they did okay. But if you trade those guys, you're going to be a worse football team. Now, they're 1-6. So how much worse can you be? Not that much worse, right? Great to see so many of you in here. I appreciate it. Go to Edley's, A. B, sign up for paulkuharski.com. $7.50 a month, really nothing. Price of a cocktail. Lots of great Titans content. A lot of digging as to what's going on here. I ask tough questions, etc., etc. I look forward to seeing your subscription tonight or tomorrow. Logan says, well, I think Callahan should be here no matter what next year. One and done is weak for a coach. Do you think Callahan's getting a hotter seat? Well, I mean, that's all about Amy. Is Amy happy? I don't think Amy is happy. And again, can't count on Amy. Nobody saw the J-Rob firing coming when it came. And not many of us thought that she was going to fire Vrabel when she did. But it's not the same as firing a brand new coach after 1 year. Hail Mary for the win by Washington. Did Marcus throw that? And as David Brown said here, the Titans can go 1-6 with Simmons and Landry or 1-6 without them. And I agree with that. Luke says, see what Jaden Daniels is doing. If a rookie quarterback has it or not. It's going to be a mistake if we pass on Cam Ward. Well, if a rookie quarterback has it or not. What if Cam Ward doesn't have it? Then it will have been a mistake to use a huge draft pick on him. So you don't know if he has it or doesn't have it until he's playing for you, showing you whether he has it or he doesn't have it. Anthony Richardson doesn't have it. All right. I was totally against what last week, Keith? I need some stuff, some context. I can't take questions with no context. There are lots of questions here. There are 2,500 people in here. I appreciate it, but I can't take a question without any context. We got about 10 minutes left, so I'll do the best I can. Travis Hunter is a super intriguing prospect. I don't think you'd play him two ways very often. But, certainly that guy's going to make your offense better. He's a terrific receiver, and I think he's going to make plays for you. And the Titans need three things badly beyond quarterback. They need a right tackle, who I don't think you could spend a premium pick on. They need an edge rusher with or without Landry on the team. And without Landry on the team, you need two. With Landry on the team, you really need two. But you need a premier guy at one. And they have not spent high draft capital on edge rushers. They've spent Javon Curse, 16th pick overall, Derek Morgan, later pick than that. I'm not sure the number. Name me another first rounder. I don't think there is one. And they need a young, fast receiver. Hopkins is gone. NWI, solid player, but has its limits. Boyd, definitely limited. So you've got Ridley for at least one more season. You need another young, dynamic guy. And there are young, dynamic guys coming out of the draft constantly. And the Titans have not gotten into that pool. Dez Fitzpatrick. I mean, that's another awful, awful move. Titan Kong wants to know if I think Rand's still looking into trading more players away for draft compensation. Hopes we keep the defensive pieces for next year. Also hope we keep Amani Hooker. I don't think Amani Hooker's going anywhere. I doubt it. Good player. Keep the defensive pieces for next year. I mean, this defense, a lot of people seem to love it. Doesn't make big plays. So preventing yardage is okay. But let's say, look, they got put in terrible positions twice, over and over today. But 2 times, Detroit ran play action, and there's a guy standing alone. Khalif Raymond on one play, standing alone to catch a touchdown pass. Amon-Ra St. Brown, standing alone to catch a touchdown pass. I mean, if the defense is really good, how does it the whole team read the play action play that incorrectly and leave a guy that wide open? That's why I think the defense has a lot of potential to be good. I think it plays good yardage defense. That's fine. But, and it played relatively good scoring defense. The scoring defense is going to go off the charts now. And it's, again, not entirely its fault because it was put in such bad spots. But Ernest Jones said it. They play good defense when it doesn't matter. And when it matters, they don't play great defense. And, I'm going to miss his candor. How many NFL head coaches and GMs are on the same clock? I don't know. I'd have to look at that. I automatically thought of Snead and McVay. They're not. In the division, they're not. In Indianapolis, they are not. In Houston, and they are not in Jacksonville. But only one of those teams is any good right now. So you wouldn't want to model yourself after any of them because they're pretty shitty. Rob wants me to say fact or fiction. Callahan doesn't survive this season. I think he survives this season, but I can't tell you if it's fact or fiction. It's up to the whims of Amy Adams Strunk. I think, the sad thing is, you're being sarcastic there, Richard. $750 a month, $81 a year. That's a 10% discount. They brought in Callahan's offensive guru, quarterback whisperer. Brought in Callahan, an offensive guru, quarterback whisperer, and both have failed miserably. Time to look at that guy and hold him accountable. Hold him accountable. So what does holding him accountable look like? To most of you, the only way to hold a guy to account is to fire him. Now, you want to put him in a timeout? Like, what is holding him accountable? Like, how are you held accountable if you're hired for a tough job and it's an 18-week at a time job, but really it's a 3-year process, and the first 7 weeks, 8 weeks go poorly? How are you held to account? Everybody wants people held to account, but I don't know exactly what it means. I don't think you know exactly what it means. You want heads to roll. I mean, if they fire Brian Callahan right now, Denard Wilson becomes the head coach. Denard Wilson seems pretty good. Again, I think his defense is overrated to a degree. And then the offensive play caller becomes Nick Holtz. And Nick Holtz is Brian Callahan's protege with less experience than the inexperienced Brian Callahan. So is that what you want? Does that fix things? Doesn't seem like it fixes things to me. But if that's what you want, go ahead and call for it. Denard Wilson, Nick Holtz, Titans. I don't know how you're convinced that's definitely going to be better. Who's the worst quarterback in the division? Logan wants to know. And I think it's very clearly Will Levis, though Anthony Richardson isn't doing anything special. JR says, when you're getting blown out 52-14, it's time to look at the coaching staff. This is a much more talented team than last year. They look far worse. So it's interesting. They're blown out 52-14, and you immediately look at the coaching staff. Well, what about the players? Where were the guys in the lanes on the special teams thing? I mean, I'm up for looking at Colt Anderson. I wrote that. But Chig fumbled. So should we look at the tight ends coach or should we look at Chig? Calvin fumbled. So do we look at the wide receivers coach? Is Tyke Tolbert responsible for that? Or is Ridley responsible for that? Mason threw 2 bad interceptions. One of them, the guy was hanging on him, Leroy Watson's guy. So do we look at Bill Callahan for Leroy Watson's failure, or do we look at Leroy Watson for Leroy Watson's failure? And do we look at Mason Rudolph for his 2 picks, or do we look at Bo Hardigree, the quarterback's coach? I'm always confused as to why we skip past the players to their coaches. And that's why it's taken me a while to come to where I am on Colt Anderson. Now, repeatedly having stuff crop up on your watch, and special teams isn't an individual thing. It's outside of kicker and punter. It's a unit thing. Then I think, well, the unit continues to fail. Now, the offensive unit continues to fail for sure. But the things that took down the offensive unit today, I just quoted you 4 turnovers. How are they more on the coaches than on the player that turned the ball over? I'm going to answer you. They're not. So why aren't you bitching about Chig and Ridley and Mason? Why are you bitching more about the coaching staff? They have no discipline. Well, you think it's a lack of discipline that made Chig fumble? So you're saying to the coach, you did not instill enough discipline in Chig to – it's a physical error by Chig. You say to Chig, stop making physical errors. But it's ultimately Chig making the physical error. You think it's that you're going to take it once removed and make it on Jason Outen, the tight ends coach, for not instilling discipline. It just seems like taking it and removing it from the players. If players have regressed significantly one season to the next, there's been a coaching change, then it's not a stress to assume a causal link and focused on the quality of the coaching staff. I think if Chig didn't fumble last year and he's fumbling now, that's Chig fumbling. I get your broader point. But ultimately, if a guy fumbles, the guy responsible for the fumble is the fumbler. I'm funny that way. If a guy's throwing an interception, the guy responsible for the interception is the guy who made the decision and threw the ball. Now, might he have been put in a bad situation? Maybe. Now, again, here, is this organization just cursed? This organization's so bad that just 4 seasons ago, it was the number 1 seed in the AFC. So cursed. As opposed to these people in Detroit who didn't go to the playoffs for, 30 years? Or once in 30 years, as opposed to your organization that went to the playoffs 4 times in Vrabel's 6 years or 3 times. My God, I don't know how you survive it. I don't know how. 59 minutes. Look at that. Join paulkuharsky.com. Eat at Edley's. Bet at Zen Sports. Don't block the box, and be sure to lock your locks. I've had a great time. It's been a great conversation. You'll find me after the game every week. Paul Kuharsky Podcast. Paul Kuharsky Podcast Thursday afternoons. 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock from Edley's at 5 Points. Tomorrow morning, I'll make an appearance on Robbie and Rex Road. Wednesday morning, I'll make an appearance on Robbie and Rex Road. And tomorrow afternoon, I'll join Braden Gall for a football show, also a part of the 440 network. Thanks very much. I had a big time. Let's go see what they have to eat in Detroit.